We are back with more analog horror, and this time I wanted to talk about, as the title says, more analog horror entities you could definitely beat. The last one went really well, so it only makes sense to do another one, and I have a bunch of analog horror here that you may or may not have seen before. The entities within these may be cruel and dangerous, but with enough caution and planning, they can definitely be beaten. As always, I'll rate them from least to most powerful at the end of the video. And as I always say, if you end up enjoying the video, why not consider subscribing so you don't miss out on more of these videos? Check out my second channel, Soda Jump, where a friend and I get goofy playing video games and doing some IRL things, linked in the description. And of course, I'll have the links to what I discuss in the description for you to check out if they spark your interest. Let everyone know in the comments if your "nah, I'd win" argument goes out of the window for some reason, and with all of that being said, let's take a look at more analog horror entities you could definitely beat. First up, we have Dexter the Dog by expgoat. I covered a dog-related entity in the analog horror entities you could definitely beat video, so I thought I'd open up with another one because, holy moly, this thing would be a nightmare to have to deal with, but you definitely could beat it. expgoat series is in Spanish, so I've done my best to understand things, and as we can see, our entity here is this dog named Dexter. It's humanoid in appearance, but has a very strange face that stares into your soul. It makes it look unpredictable, like it could snap at any second. So, from my understanding of things, Dexter is some sort of experiment or some creature that was confined to a mirror of sorts, which might actually be a portal. Since breaching containment, it's gone on to murder, even going as far as to meticulously cut up a victim. And I say breaching containment because it does seem like a panic stirred up once it broke free. It's kind of sounding like an SCP right now, especially since there's a research center, Alternative Scientific Research Center, overseeing the mirror and Dexter. Well, they were. What I find interesting is that the mirror Dexter broke out of may give a hint to it being a Borzoi breed of dog. That's a Russian breed of hunting dog made almost extinct due to their mass killing during the Russian Revolution, which started in 1917. The dog was associated with aristocrats, the highest class in certain societies. Considering that Dexter came out of an expensive and regal looking mirror, this could line up. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of things. It obviously has the biting strength of a dog, long and sharp fingers, and despite being able to stand on two legs, it can still sort of sit like a regular dog. This thing will slaughter you if it gets too close, so distance is key here. Considering that it's been able to devastate a lot of people, I'd make the assumption that it's extremely agile, making it tough to hit, but not impossible. Hiding won't help you here because of its incredible sense of smell, so luring it out some way would be the safest way to dispose of it. It's some sort of dog after all. Its sense of smell is leagues above a human's, so finding something that has a strong bloody or meaty smell might be best. Once it's lured, unload onto it. Trying to recapture something like this would be too much of a task, unless of course you have something with stunning capabilities, but if you want to live, I think you're better off disposing of this thing. The more armed people you have with you, the higher chance of survival you have. Wearing some sort of thick and armored equipment that protects the face and body would be incredibly effective at keeping you safe from Dexter's attacks too. Pretty much something that people wear when they train attack dogs. Next up, we have the Tangi Virus by Vintage 8. This virus is found in one of Vintage 8's analog horror series and also plays a huge role in a saga of sorts. And I'll tell you what, it's extremely dangerous. This virus spreads through liquids, with samples first being taken from 3 places: outside of Lake Pontchartrain, near Kate's Crossing, and North Parish. The virus gets its name from the Tangi-Pahoa waterways where it stems from in Louisiana, United States. The virus contains organisms birthed from it, worm-like creatures. Once birthed, they attack their victim's central nervous system and brain. Being infected may cause minor symptoms, but it can also escalate. Patients have been noted to attack people like their family, and it looks like the worm-like creatures in the virus have their own agenda. As more and more investigations unfold, more information on what the virus is, what the worm-like creatures in them are, and why the government is stating that the water is actually safe are unveiled. Or at least, you can definitely speculate. I don't want to sit here spoiling the series, but let's just say that getting infected will likely lead to your death in one way or another. So let's say that you live around Tangi waterways. Your first step to beating the virus would be to be aware of its presence and to avoid water. That means not going near the tourist spots where the lakes are, or just steering clear of the lakes in general. Being able to pick up on the symptoms that people display when infected is key here too. That means you can keep away from them and safely isolate them away so they don't infect you if that's possible, and so they don't attack you either. The government also encouraged people to boil their water before consuming, which may work to destroy the virus, but could you trust the government? After all, in this series, they told everybody that the water was safe when it clearly wasn't. Granted, that was after they told people to boil their water, but it still seems a bit suspicious. The safest option here would be to stick to bottled water for consumption, cooking, and other uses. For extra safety, you could buy bottled water that isn't bottled in America. Also, is it true that a lot of Americans don't actually consume water from taps? Are the pipes just that old that you avoid them? Down in Australia, we don't exactly have that issue, so let me know in the comment section below because that's obviously a foreign concept to me, so. Anyway, getting back on topic, I'd say the biggest and best thing you can do is move away from the affected area. The further, the better. If possible, of course, and mind you, only leave by yourself or with people if you all don't show any signs of symptoms. So all in all, if you're not in danger of contracting the virus, then you've beaten it, but everyone else in the area is condemned to it. To truly stop it, a major collaborative effort would need to go underway to section off affected areas to stop the spread, and infected people and animals will need to be disposed of, as inhumane as that sounds. It's either you keep them alive to live violent and infected until they die, maybe even going crazy involuntarily isolated away from people, or you put them out of their misery. Obviously, a collective effort to treat people and cure them should go underway, and so should finding the root cause of this virus and eradicating it. Realistically though, moving away seems to be the easiest choice here versus a government-led effort to eradicate the virus. After all, the government is making it seem like everything is fine, so have the infections reached the top? So now we have the man in the suit from Unknowingly's Godzilla analog horror. I've seen a few of you suggest this series, so thanks for the suggestion, and if you have any more, leave them down in the comment section below. Now regarding the man in the suit, I'm here to tell you that you could definitely beat him. Without spoiling too much about the series, the man who played Godzilla in the 1954 film loved wearing the Godzilla suit. So much so that he never took it off during filming. No one ever saw the actor inside of the suit. He was just the man in the suit, even taking it home with him despite not being allowed to. He even asked people to call him Goji, like Godzilla. One day while on set, he stopped moving for a few minutes and the director thought he was just joking around. When he started to move again, his breathing had changed and there was concern on set. Workers opened up his suit to check up on the man and they saw that his flesh had molded to the suit itself. It was like the big Godzilla suit really was his skin. He was no longer a man. As the years pass by, the man in the suit becomes to act more and more like a monster, as if he really was Godzilla, and he gets quite scary. So if Goji here, the man in the suit, is becoming Godzilla, could we say that he would also have some of the abilities that Godzilla has? After all, there is something supernatural going on here. Amphibious capabilities, durable skin resistant to conventional weapons, a strong jaw and tail for attacks, and atomic breath. All of these seem possible in one way or another, so we'd have to account for that. The first thing we can look at is the oxygen destroyer used to beat Godzilla in most of its iterations. This is dropped in the water where Godzilla is, and once it goes off, it eviscerates anything in its explosion radius, splitting oxygen molecules in the water and liquefying them. You can imagine what that would do to an organism, most organisms. But let's say we don't have an oxygen destroyer, or that Goji here doesn't want to jump into the ocean. Now what? Well, he's not the size of what Godzilla should be, he looks to be the size of the suit. Realistically, conventional weapons should be somewhat effective on Goji here than if it was the size of a skyscraper. With enough firepower on this thing, I don't think it would stand a chance. The issue here seems to be properly keeping track of him and acting hastily to stop him. With enough military action, it can definitely be done. And if the filming company creating these Godzilla films would just tell people that this actor is here and it's dangerous, it would make things a whole lot easier. And by here, I mean on set. It's just logical, right? So with enough military action, it can definitely be done. If you were just a regular person living your life, you just have to lock your doors and hide away if you spotted him out at night. If you're caught out by big old Goji, running or getting into a car and driving off would be your best option. The Godzilla suit doesn't seem ultra mobile, but I can't confirm if that's the case since the man has become the suit. Either way, if you stay away from Goji, keep your family away from it, keep yourselves safe, and alert local authorities, with enough awareness and alerting, it can be beaten. Just pray that other people aren't somehow turned into kaijus. Moving on from the man in the suit, we have Don't Look at the Moon, an EAS scenario analog horror by Xerxes Break. A lunar eclipse is forecasted for the night of October 27, 1983, and with that brings a blood moon. All seems well as no special equipment is needed and time passes while watching Channel 26 until the lunar eclipse. But once it arrives, that's where all hell breaks loose. Viewing the blood moon has become hazardous since the blood rays that beam off the moon are having an effect on humans. If you begin to feel dizziness, confusion, hallucinations, body aches, or light spotting on the skin, it's recommended that you isolate yourself away in a shelter of sorts, whether that be your home or a locked room away from anyone else. Why? Because you're starting to turn into a moonster, which may sound a bit goofy, but I like the name. Moonsters are humans that have been mutated by the blood moon's rays. They're described as tall, thin, pale-skinned, with black, shining eyes and a menacing smile. It sounds like your run-of-the-mill humanoid/cryptid type of creature. However, moonsters can hide in the dark, imitate voices, and cause madness. No help from the state and military is available until 4 AM, so you know what that means. We have ourselves some entities we can definitely beat. In the worst case scenario, which is where you look at the moon and start to feel symptoms, you'd have to isolate yourself from everyone and avoid looking at the moon more. There's no mention of symptoms going away in the EAS, but keeping away from everyone, especially in a room with a good amount of lighting, could help symptoms subside. After all, you'd be keeping away from the blood moon's rays, but say you and your family have heeded Channel 26's warning, you would definitely need to reinforce your house. Close your window blinds and lock them up along with your doors. Block them with furniture or reinforce them with wooden boards if needed too. It would seem that North Carolina is the most affected state that this is happening in, so if you live there, you're going to have to be extra cautious. And if you're American, feel free to exercise your God-given rights, because if these moonsters spot you in your home or try to attack you, you need to do anything you can to fight or flight. In a fight, obviously, use your God-given rights, and if you're from another country, adopt some God-given rights. Not only that, but shine a bright light around or directly onto the moonsters and play a high-frequency sound around them. Remember to keep track of the people you're hiding with and ignore voices that sound like them unless you can 100% confirm that it was said by them. Once 4 AM hits and the blood moon's rays subside, let the military deal with everything outside while you keep indoors and you'll be able to beat these things. From here, we have the Tom Through the Window series by DaHomies. This is a Tom and Jerry analog horror of all things, and is interesting to say the least. What we're going to be mainly looking at is the final part in the series, Tom Wins, 1989. All of what we're shown and told is from the perspective of a neighbor living next to Mrs. Mammy, Tom's owner. Tom was getting pretty sick and tired of losing to Jerry in their cat and mouse chases. Ironically, Mrs. Mammy thought he was actually getting sick, and it seems like he was. He caught Jerry, eliminated him and Mrs. Mammy, and is now on the loose. Whatever happened to Tom turned him into a monster, and he can be beaten. He got into the house of our narrator at some stage and just stared at him before fleeing. Even after killing Jerry, Tom looked out of his window and stared at the neighbor. He may come back for his neighbor, but these interactions at least tell us that Tom may have hesitated to kill him, or that he likes to stalk his prey too. Yet again, we have another entity we can beat with a solid home defense. Arm yourself with a weapon, keep your loved ones safe and together inside your locked and boarded up house. And if Tom is around and putting your family in danger, remember that he is beatable. A 12 gauge or anything similar to it is much more than effective. After all, he's become a cat that can stand on 2 legs. He may have sharp teeth, claws, and quick movement, but he's as susceptible to damage and pain just like you are. Despite the situation, have no fear and fight for your right to live. Use your human intellect to your advantage too, and make sure you turn off your devices to avoid any static or alarms. Tom is attracted to that kind of stuff. Isn't it scary just how different Tom and Jerry really is when you remove the slapstick comedy? So next up, we have Prehistoric Emergence by AZUNStudios. This is a series about prehistoric organisms that haven't been seen for millions and millions of years coming back and existing in our modern time. As of this video coming out, there are 2 videos in this series, and I want to focus on the entities found in video 1, the Mosasaurus, Dunkleosteus, and Megalodon. I wanted to look at all of these creatures because they all live in the sea, and AZUNStudios series is still new and ongoing, so I don't want to spoil a lot. Let's focus on the fact that these are all sea creatures. That makes our survival very easy. All we'd have to do is stay on land and we'd be fine. You see, they emerged from this hole that leads to a hidden region in the water where they've been able to exist despite being believed to have been extinct. Stay away from them and you'd be fine. But that's not exactly beating them now, is it? After all, you might be safe, but our ways of life will be changed forever. We've been apex predators for so long, so much so that we breed animals just to take their resources and eat them. Fish are very important in that whole system, and so is water as a resource. If you have giant, once thought to be extinct fish swimming around in our oceans, how do you think that's going to affect the food chain? And how do you think it'll affect our worldly resource collection and distribution? It would make these oceans very dangerous and hard to get anything out of. So let's stay on the top of the food chain and get rid of these entities. The Mosasaurus and Dunkleosteus can be taken out with conventional underwater machinery and weaponry, to an extent. I'm talking harpoons, torpedoes, underwater mines, etc. Although, these creatures are quite big, so a lot of coordination and firepower would be needed to take these entities out. The Megalodon is the biggest of these 3, and it might be a bit too big. If these creatures can't be handled properly, there are other preventative methods. This is a bit of a shot in the dark, but could you just unload a bunch of bombs into the hole? It would result in a pretty unpredictable outcome, so somehow fencing off or reinforcing the area near the hole wouldn't be such a bad idea if possible. Naval mines are a good option as well, especially since they can be dropped from the sky into the water, so go crazy with them. If things get really bad, then a lot of our oceans or specific ones are going to be hazardous, meaning that certain foods or resources will become scarce. The governments of the world wouldn't allow that to happen because after all, we're just too dependent on the world's oceans. In times of desperation and hardship, humans can and will band together. So, if you want to be part of the groups that defeat or control the prehistoric entities, then fight for us and beat them. If not, someone else can beat them for you. Now, for our final quote-unquote entity, and it's a bit of a bonus one, we have Lunchly by Requiem. Yes, that Lunchly. Mr. Beast's, Logan Paul's, and KSI's Lunchly product. This video is a small explainer of the controversy in an analog horror format. When I found this video, I knew I had to cover it because it's just so funny and so ridiculous to be covering an analog horror video on a topic like Lunchly of all things. It was like I was staring at a Lovecraftian horror. I completely lost my mind at the realization that this is my entry into the YouTube commentary community. I jest, but seriously, the Lunchly situation is crazy, guys. It is so crazy, guys. It has exploded my penis. So as a quick refresher on what it is for those who don't know or have forgotten, everyone's favorite controversial YouTubers, Mr. Beast, Logan Paul, and KSI collaborated to create a boxed meal for kids called Lunchly, which is a ripoff of Lunchables. The food's quality and nutrition has come under fire, and the people who represent the brand aren't exactly saints. That's putting things lightly, but anyway, I can confidently say that you could definitely beat Lunchly. What a sentence. Anyway, it's quite the tricky entity, boasting a whole lot of advertising jargon that makes it sound really good, but that's just an illusion to pull you into a product that's more costlier and worse for you than the Oh my god, I can't even speak. I'm just reading my script and I can't believe what I've written. It's just, oh my goodness. So more costlier and worse for you than the competition. Its big claims are that it has more protein than the competition, which, if you know anything about protein, is near to nothing. And it's especially nothing to advertise or brag about. There we go, now we're getting into the thick of it. Secondly, the amount of calories is very low in the meal. Remember, your body needs calories to function properly. I can understand if you want to lose weight or gain weight for your own personal desires, but do so responsibly. Eating Lunchly wouldn't be, since you need to eat a few of the meals as a kid to reach your needed calorie count in a meal, and more if you're an adult. But if you do so, just know that you're eating way too much salt in your multiple meals just to hit a healthy calorie count. That means bloating, high blood pressure, heart attacks, and kidney stones are heading your way. That is, assuming you eat too many of these over a long period, or if the moldy cheese doesn't get to you first. Even without the information you can find in Requiem's video or my own that I've gotten from other sources, you should pay attention to what you're eating. Reading nutritional information on the back of packaging and getting an understanding of what certain ingredients are is a good way to stay on top of bad products being peddled to you. Don't fall for their tricks and you've beaten them. So now we have our usual rating of things from least to most powerful. Remember, if something is rated high or the highest, you could still definitely beat it. Coming up as the least most powerful entity in this video, we have, of course, Lunchly. It's a boxed meal. What did you expect? Granted, it is a below average food product marketed as the greatest thing ever, but if you can see past the marketing ploys and avoid consumption, you've beaten it. I can't really say that for the next entity in the ranking, Tom Through the Window. It's a humanoid entity of sorts that caught and killed Jerry, killed its owner, and is now on the loose. I think a 12 gauge can put a stop to that. I think we can say the same about Dexter the Dog. Since it's been able to create enough havoc and devastation, it may have some supernatural or heightened abilities, other than being a dog human of course. But enough conventional firepower should be able to stop it. Could we say the same about the man in the suit? It's hard to say, but it definitely could be taken down. It's on the loose and somehow can do something that the other entities weaker than it can't. I won't spoil what, but I'm sure you could put 1 and 2 together, especially if you've watched the series. Next is the prehistoric emergence sea creatures. Our biggest strength against them is staying on land, but not doing anything about them will create small and large consequences for the whole world. A world effort to destroy, capture, or control them would have to go underway. However, the moonsters from Don't Look at the Moon don't have the issue of being kept to the ocean. Just by looking at the moon, you risk the health and safety of yourself and those around you. The effects of the blood moon can be mitigated by simply not exposing yourself to the moon, but add the unpredictability of the moonsters and you have a tricky situation on your hands. As long as you're hunkered up and vigilant, you'll win. Which brings us to the most powerful entity on the list, the Tangi Virus. I think it's the most powerful because of how easy it can spread. We need water to survive, and it's found all over the planet, so you could contract it so easily, which again will put the health and safety of you and others at risk due to how the virus makes you violent, and other things, but moving away to somewhere not affected by the virus or avoiding the area will increase your chances of beating it. Boiling the water might make it safe for consumption, but buying bottled water that was bottled in other countries is a much safer option. And there you go. That's been more analog horror entities you could definitely beat. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Would you actually lose against them? What did you think of my strategies and rankings? Let me know in the comments section below. If you have suggestions for analog horror videos I should take a look at for these videos, let me know too. Like, subscribe, and check out my second channel Soda Jump if you want to see more from me. And as always, we can't forget the shout out to my lovely patrons and YouTube members. And a big shout out to the highest tier Patreon member, La Creatura. Thank you for your continued contributions, and thank you to everyone else. You guys are absolute legends. Stay tuned for more content like this, and I'll catch ya in the next one.